Hey, it's Jason from Pro Guitar Studio, and today we take a look at a 5-note pentatonic scale pattern that can be used all over the fretboard. So, a lot of times we look at learning boxes or shapes of the pentatonic scale and try to learn those all the way up the fretboard. Sometimes it can be confusing, sometimes you can get lost with how many positions there are, knowing where you are, where to start, where to end. And I'm going to show you just a really simple way to sort of bring it back to basics. And even if you know all those shapes, this is a great way to try to sort of dive in and actually look at how these shapes are constructed. And so we're going to do a 5-note pattern that will work anywhere. As long as you know your root note, you can use this to improvise, to write solos, to do whatever you want to do, and it's movable, okay? So we just have to know where a root note is and be able to find that octave or that next note or next root note on a different string. And then we can take these patterns, this 5-note pattern, and move it along. So as an example, my pattern I'm going to use today is going to be the A minor pentatonic. So this 5-note phrase, where I'm playing G, A, C, D, E, can be repeated all over the fretboard. Now the reason why I'm doing G and then A is because if we go through this, we only have to use our index and our ring finger. And then we have to slide out for one note, okay? Now you'll see many videos sort of detailing the first 4 notes of this. So, an easy 4-note pattern, which is just... I like to include this note because it gives you one more option, right? Otherwise we're stuck with 4 notes. And this note right here sounds really good over usually what would be the A minor chord. So keep in mind that as you go through this, you might find there's different ways you can alter this and sort of apply it to your own playing. But the A minor pentatonic over an A minor chord, our root note in this 5-note pattern is actually where that ring finger is. Okay, so let's keep that in mind as we work through this. And this week I wrote a piece just to help you work through this, and I displayed it in 3 different ways. So we'll take a listen right now to that piece. And so there's a phrase, or we'll say a collection of 4 phrases that we go through, and we'll do it in 3 different octaves. There's one thing we'll add in afterwards, which is going from string number 3 to 2, which can throw things off a bit. But I wanted to really demonstrate how this is just a movable shape, and we can really use it to do anything. Improvise, solo, songwrite, whatever you want to do. So let's take a listen, and I'll be right back. So now we've heard the piece that we're going to work on, so let's just dive right in and take a look at these patterns, okay? So for the A minor pentatonic, like I was saying before, our root note is where our ring finger is. So fret number 5 on the low E string. Now, the marker dots on this guitar aren't that visible, but this is the 5th fret, okay? So I'll try to make sure I really am clear with what I'm describing here. So I'm going to go from 3 to 5 on the low E string, which is G, A, and then 3, 5 on the A string, which is C, D. So G, A, C, D, and then E, which is the 7th fret on the A string. So first up, I would get used to going from index to ring on G, A, C, D, and then sliding up to E. So I usually will pick before I slide. You can also just move and then come back down. So I slide up in my ring, come back down my index, and then go down there. So I always try to transition at the last moment. This is one trick that I do with anything I play, is I will basically transition at the last possible moment that I can, and I usually call that the leading finger. So when I'm finally ready to switch, I will move. And this works really well with improvisation because you don't really know where you're going to go next. So if you don't know if you're going to go to the 7th fret or stay on the 5th fret, there's no reason to go with your index finger there. It just doesn't make sense. So try to switch only when you need to. And then when you have a phrase already built up and it makes more sense to switch with a certain finger, then totally go for it. But when you're practicing the scales for improvisation purposes, you can go through and try to move at the last possible moment. So index, ring, index, ring, ring, index, index, ring, index. All right, now to move that to the next octave, basically the octave of that A note is 2 strings towards the floor and 2 frets higher. Okay, so 2 strings down and 2 frets higher. So we have string number 4, or the D string, on the 7th fret. And same thing there, our index finger on the 5th fret, which is a G note, going to the 7th fret, which is our A note. So we know 5-7, or G-A, on the D string. And then on the next string, we're following the same pattern. We're going to do 5-7, which is C-D. Alright, so that's the same pattern we've been doing before. Go down here. Okay, now to find that same octave on the B string, it's going to be 2 strings towards the floor, so the 2nd string. But we actually have to add, whenever we go from string 4 to 2, or let's say we cross the 3rd string, cross the G string, we have to add 1 fret to the 2nd string because of the tuning. And that's a whole other topic to get into. But when we go from, let's say, string 6, 5, 4, whatever it might be, and we have a relationship to the 2nd string, if we want to sort of imagine going from string 5 to 3, right, as an octave, well, when we go from 4 to 2, we have to add, it's not 5 to 7, like 5th fret to 7th fret, we have to add 1 fret, so we have to go from 5 to 8. So that can be the confusing thing about going through some of these patterns, and I'll show you afterwards why it can be confusing if we go from string 3 to string 2. But when we jump down to string number 2, we're going to be on the 8th fret. Okay, this is the same note, the G note, fret number 8 on string 2. And then the A note is fret number 10. We're going to play C, D on string 1, so 8, 10. Slide up to the 12th fret, which is E. Coming back down. So those are the 3 shapes we're looking at, okay? So I'm going to teach the phrase that I worked with here. I mean, if you want to play through it, it really helps sort of understand, where to place your fingers, how to reorganize the notes. But as an example, so you can just take a listen if you'd like. So starting off on the low E string, we're going to have G, A, so 3, 5. And then on the A string, we're going to have C, D, E, which is 3, 5, 7. So 8th note, 8th note, 8th note, 8th note, quarter note. So bring that out a little bit longer. And then we're going to back to the 5, to the 3. And I think in some of the points there, I'm actually sliding back from 7 to 5 to get a nice return slide or descending slide. So you can do that, you can copy me that way, or we can just play the straight notes. Then we're going to play D, C, which is 5, 3 on the A string. And then we're going to play A, G, A, which is 5, 3, 5 on the E string. Okay, next phrase is going to be G, A, C, D, E, D, C, D, C. Third phrase is the same as the first one. Then we're going to play A, G, A. Sorry, I'm super overexposed there. I can see that in the camera. See if I can make sure I'm exposing the proper spot. There we go. Alright, so you can see me not following my advice. I'm sliding back instead of switching my index. But it sounds really cool when you get that reverse slide. Like that. Okay, so from there, taking the same exact idea, going down to the G, so the D and G string. So we have G, A, C, D, E, D, C, then D, C, A, G, A. So if you learn it in the first position, it'll be easy to move. So I'd suggest doing one at a time, like one position at a time with this phrase. Second phrase, G, A, C, D, E, D, C. And then we're going to go down, or back up, sorry, to D, C. Repeat the first phrase again. Then we're finishing with A, G, A. All right, final phrase, let's move it down. So we start on the 8th fret of string number 2, right? And we're going to play 8, 10, which is G, A. String number 1 is C, D, E, so 8, 10, 12. Back to D, C. And then D, C, A, G, A. And again, G, A, C, D, E, D, C, D, C. Third phrase is the same as the first. A, G, A. Finally, all right, so just a quick play through those so you can get the idea. The challenging thing comes here when we go from string 3 to string 2. So this pattern works everywhere as long as you know your root note. Use your ring finger for that root note. Like let's say, for example, it's E. Find your E note right here. 12th fret on the low E string. We can use that to improvise, right? So we have an E minor like. We can go up higher. And we can go higher again. So it works everywhere, as long as you know where that root note is, okay? So that can be handy to have like a diagram of your fretboard, just so you can figure out where those root notes are and try to find a way to play through whatever you're playing through. The hardest thing, like I said, going from string 3 to string 2. So from string 3 to string 2, we have to add 1 fret. So if we're doing G to A, which is 12 to 14 on the G string, when we go down to the 2nd string to play our C note, usually the pattern would be like 12, 14, 12, 14. You can hear it doesn't work. So we need to add 1 fret. So we got to go 12, 14, and then 13, 15. So just keep that in mind when you use the 3rd string as your root. If we're doing the 14th fret here, you have 12, 14, and then 13, 15, 17. And that's the only place you're going to be thrown off of this pattern. So when we're crossing from string 6 to 5, same. String 5 to 4 will be totally cool. Same kind of pattern. 4 to 3, good. But 3 to 2, we have to have 1 fret to the 2nd string. Okay, we have to always have 1 fret there. And string 2 to 1, we're fine. So because it's a 5-note pattern, we can shift it everywhere. It's useful that way. So have some fun with this. If you have questions, let me know. If you like this lesson, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back next week with more lessons.